As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Hi, everyone, and welcome in for another episode of the Sleeping with the Numbers podcast. I'm your host, Dylan. It will be just me today. And today we're going to go through the week 2 machine learning model picks. And we're going to start off immediately here with our question of the day. And it's a question to myself. And it is, what team have you changed your mind on? So what team have I changed my mind on just based on week 1? Now, likely this is an overreaction like many of us do for week 1 games, especially in fantasy, especially for individual players. But I'm gonna go for teams. And when I think about this question, I have ESPN pulled up here, looking at the scoreboards and trying to jog my memory of what happened on Sunday and Monday. That Monday night game really screwed me. I needed 2.31 points from Lamar Jackson and Justin Tucker, and they made it to overtime, and I'm like, oh, that's easy. We'll easily get that. And Lamar goes and fumbles. So really ruined my week for one of my bigger teams. Actually, let's start there. So I probably am a little more down on Baltimore than I was to start this season. I still think they'll definitely pick it up. But as far as how they looked, their offensive line is a problem. They brought in Villanueva from Pittsburgh, and he has just looked absolutely terrible. The line as a whole has not looked great, but Villanueva, who's playing a very important role, he got beat up every single play, it seemed. Lamar was always under pressure, and luckily Lamar Jackson can get out of there. He's quick and nimble, but it was still a problem. That pressure caused 2 fumbles. It's a tough thing to overcome, and that offensive line is something that needs an eye kept on them for the rest of the season. So I can't say I've completely changed my mind on them. I think they will still turn it around, but that's probably a good place to start since we were just talking about it, and that game just happened. Now, a team that I think I did a complete 180, maybe like a 130 to 150 on, is the Philadelphia Eagles. I was not really expecting much from them, and I don't think anyone really was. But they came out and they destroyed the Atlanta Falcons. Jalen Hurts looked great. I talked about it on the fantasy show where I was worried about him because they were supposed to be the underdogs. He gets his points through running, but his passing game looked great. He went 27 for 35, 264 yards, 3 touchdowns, and I believe he got like 60-some yards rushing as well. So he is turning it up. 62 yards rushing. So he did a fantastic job. I am a little upset at the Eagles for trying to go after Deshaun Watson so hard and even picking up Gardner. It just seems like a weird thing to do when Hurts did as well as he did. It seems like the team was worried about him, and I know the Falcons maybe aren't the best defense, but they shouldn't be worried about him. He is a fine quarterback, and so I've changed my mind a bit on the Philadelphia Eagles, and I expect a lot from them going forward. Even Miles Sanders looked great, so that was good there. We talked about it last week. The Steelers beating the Bills. We expected the Bills to win. We expect a lot from the Bills. We expect them to make it to the Super Bowl. I have not changed my mind on them. I think the Steelers are just that good. I can't say that. The Steelers definitely brought it back together. Our defense is what held it together. We have one of the best, if not the best, defenses in the league, and I'll argue that any day. But the Bills will pick it back up. I'm not completely worried about them. I have not changed my mind on them. So the Washington football team is another team that I've slightly changed my mind on, not because of how they played or anything, but more so with the injury of Ryan Fitzpatrick. He was kind of a key player, obviously. I mean, he was going to be the quarterback. And I think the value of Terry McLaurin and really the rest of the offensive side of the ball goes down without Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's a decent quarterback. He's played forever, and he chucks the ball, and that was going to be great for Terry McLaurin. It was going to be great for Curtis Samuel whenever he came back from IR, but now he's out for quite a bit, and I don't know how it's going to go. Now, again, their defense is top of the line, second to Steelers, but they'll keep them in these games, but I think the amount of points they score is going to go down because of this injury. And finally, a team I think we got to talk about here is the Green Bay Packers. They played terribly. They looked awful. They could not get anything going on the offensive side of the ball, and their defense just got tired out because they were always on the field. Now, again, when we did our predictions for playoffs and everything, I have Green Bay going to the Super Bowl. And I have them winning, actually. So I think this will give them a kick in the ass and hopefully wake them up. But that was not a great start for them. But I have not completely changed my mind on them, even after that terrible, terrible game. They're another team that should turn around quickly. All right, so let's get into these week 2 machine learning model picks. We went about 50% on the last one. I don't really know anyone who had a great first week of betting, but that's what week 1 is. It gives us a baseline to go off of, because from the offseason, it's all just speculation. We don't know exactly how the teams are going to do, and a lot of us were wrong. I was wrong quite a bit. I was looking on the sportsbook subreddit. A lot of people there were just beaten into the ground from this week 1 because it was rough. There was a lot of unexpected turn of events. I don't think a lot of people had Green Bay losing. That's one that the model did, so good job on the model there. I don't think a lot of people had Houston winning. So it's really just a baseline, and the only way back is up. So let's get this started. Let's start with Thursday night's game of the New York Giants versus the Washington football team. So Giants go to Washington to play the football team. The current line is Washington is 3.5-point favorites, and there is an over-under of 40.5 points. So a very low over-under, probably because poor offense of the Giants, and now probably the lesser offense of the Washington football team, which we just spoke about, but also the great play of the Washington football team. They will probably keep the Giants in check if the Giants aren't doing that to themselves. So looking at the model's predictions, the model predicts a score of 15.65. Now, again, we all know there's no fractional points in football, but that is just what the model was predicting. And the Washington football team, 21.96 points. So based on that gives us a total of about 38 points. So we are going to take the under here. That's one I agree with. I don't expect a lot of scoring, especially with this Washington defense. No Ryan Fitzpatrick, and the Giants, being the Giants. So with that, we would take the under. Now, we would also take the Washington -3.5 spread and Washington to win. I believe I agree with both of those. I said the offensive firepower is probably a little less now without Ryan Fitzpatrick, but their defense is what's going to keep them in this game. And I hope they lean a bit more on Antonio Gibson in the run game, because they can definitely get it going against the Giants here. And not to mention, the Giants have the worst offensive line, which is... I don't know if that's true anymore after watching some of the games this week, but according to Pro Football Focus, they did have the lowest ranked offensive line, which will allow Chase Young to just eat Daniel Jones alive. So that'll be Thursday night, and those are the picks we are making. Under 40.5 points, Washington -3.5, Washington to win. Getting into Sunday's games, we got the 1-0 Bengals against the 0-1 Bears. Chicago is currently a 3-point home favorite, and they have an over-under of 45 points. So looking at the machine learning models picks, they have 27.43 points for the Bears, 19.17 for Cincinnati. So that gives us a combined of about 47 points. So we would take the over just barely of that 45 points, Chicago to win, and Chicago 3. Now, they're predicting about an 8-point win for Chicago. I don't know how much I buy into that. The Bengals were another team that I was close to saying I changed my mind on because they did. They looked good. Joe Mixon looked great. Joe Burrow looked great. Chase looked better than expected. So I think this one will be pretty close. For that -3, I think that's fair. But I think it's going to be a close one. I'm not sure if I will take this bet. So pay attention to our Action Network to see how we bet on this one. But as for the model, they're taking the Bears -3, and the over just barely. All right, the next game here, we have the 1-0. Wow, that sounds weird to say. The 1-0 Texans versus the 0-1 Browns. So Browns are the home team here. They are 12.5-point favorites with an over-under of 48. The machine learning model has the Browns at 31 points and Houston with 25.5, giving them a roughly 57-point total. So the model is going to take the Cleveland Browns, the over, and Houston plus 12.5. And I have to agree with probably all of that. 12.5 points is a lot of points. It's tough to win by that much. It's a hard thing to do. And Houston, now if Houston did not perform the way they did in week 1, I don't think I would take the Houston points, but they showed enough to make me believe that they can at least, do something. They can score a bit. Now they'll be up against a Cleveland Browns defense, which is obviously a lot better than the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll see how Tyrod performs, but overall 12.5 points is a lot of points, and I would give that to Houston to cover. The Rams-Colts are our next game. The Rams are 1-0, Colts 0-1. Colts are at home, but the Rams are 4-point away favorites with a over-under of 47.5 points. And if we go and look at the machine learning model's predictions, they actually have the Colts winning this game. So the model is predicting 25.15 points for the Colts and 22.78 for the Rams, giving them a total of about 48 points. And that 48 points is barely beating the 47.5 point over under. So that's a tough one to make. Now the model, we're going to take what the model says, and the model's bet is going to be the over. But as for ours, and it's going to require a bit more discussion. So again, please pay attention to our Action Network and our website to track our bets. How will this one play out? So the Rams obviously looked very good, but they also played against a weak Bears team. The Colts did not look great. Wentz did not look very good. That is a tough one. I believe this game is going to be pretty close, and I'm absolutely fine taking Indianapolis +4, but I don't know if I can take them to win. I think the Rams are a fantastic team, and Stafford looks at home under center for the Rams. Him and Kupp were just connecting over and over and over, and I don't really expect anything less during this game. So I'm fine with taking Indianapolis +4 because I do think it will be a bit of a closer game, but I would expect the Rams to come out on top for this one. All right, the next two games are actually going to be AFC East games. So the first one is going to be the 0-1 Buffalo Bills versus the 1-0 Miami Dolphins. Dolphins are the home team, but Buffalo is going to be the 3.5 point away favorite with an over-under of 47.5 points. Going over to the model. The model expects the Bills to win, giving them 28.4 points to Miami's 26.42. And that is roughly a 55-point total. So Nash wants to come up here, so I'm going to let him come up. Hi, buddy. So, given that the over-under actually changed a little bit since I made these bets. So currently the over-under is 47.5. When we made these bets, it was at 48. But either way, the model has the over predicting about 55 total points, and they expect it to be a decently close game, giving Miami the +3.5. Now, the model has Miami +3.5, but personally, I think I'll probably end up taking Buffalo -3.5. I just think the Buffalo Bills are a much better team than the Miami Dolphins. I expected them to lose last week to New England. There was a costly fumble that kind of flipped that game on its head. So I just still do not believe in Tua at all. Now Jalen Waddle looked great for a rookie. Gesicki did pretty much nothing. Gaskin was okay, but I just have zero faith in Tua. So I think Josh Allen and the crew are gonna put them away pretty good. All right, getting into the other half of the AFC East, we have the Patriots 0-1 against the Jets, also 0-1. The Jets are the home team, but New England is a 5.5-point away favorite with a pretty low over-under of 43 points. Looking at the machine learning model, they have New England beating the Jets by quite a bit, 25.25 to 16. So that gives us about a 41-point over under. So the model is predicting the under for this one. So again, this one slightly changed, but it doesn't change the bet for the model. When we made these bets, we had it at 42.5, whereas the current line is 43. So still take the under either way. New England is now minus 5.5 point favorites. When we made this bet, they were minus 6 point favorites. Again, does not really change the bet here. The model is still taking New England to cover. This one is a little tough. I personally might give the Jets the points here. I will have to look at that a bit more, but they looked okay against Carolina. It took them a little bit to get it going, but once Wilson was finding Corey Davis, and he just kept going to him, and they looked like they had a solid connection there. Now, the run game is basically non-existent in New York, and that might not even matter because if they're playing from behind, they should be passing a lot. So this one, I think, will be closer than that minus 6. I'll keep looking at this, but at the moment, I think I might take the Jets plus 6. New England is still a decent team. They honestly probably should have won against Miami, but Mac Jones is still getting his feet wet, and I think they'll come out a bit stronger. It sounds like Harris might be a little bit in the doghouse for Bill Belichick after that fumble, but we'll see what happens. All right, next up we got the 1-0 49ers against the 1-0 Philadelphia Eagles, and they were a team I just said I think they're turning it around. So currently San Francisco is minus 3.5 point favorite with an over-under of 50 points. So checking out the model, we got Philly for 23.1 points and the Niners with 25.6, giving us a total of roughly 49 points. So that puts us right under that 50 mark. So the model will be taking that under. For me, I'm personally leaning towards the over just because of the fantastic fast-paced play the Eagles had against Atlanta. And San Francisco put up 41 points last week. And yes, it was against Detroit, but there's no reason to think they can't kind of do that again. Debo went off. Maybe Ayuk gets to touch the ball once this game. No Raheem Mostert, sadly, for the rest of the season. So that backfield is going to be a question mark. Even Trey Lance got in there and threw a touchdown pass. So San Francisco is a dynamic team and can easily put up a lot of points, and they also have a solid defense. So this one can end up being a shootout, and that's why it is one of the higher over-unders this week. So that's a tough one. That one might be a shootout. So I'm fine with the Niners winning. I think that makes sense. Philadelphia plus 3.5. I think that's also fair. That's a little more than a field goal, and that's usually what a lot of games come down to. And if you can get that extra half a point, awesome. That's all the better. So now, so that's a good one to take. Moving on to the home team, we have the 1-0 Raiders traveling to Heinz Field to take on the 1-0 Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are 5.5 point home favorites with an over-under of 47 points. Now, The model is predicting the Steelers to win by quite a bit. They are giving 22.7 points to the Raiders and 32.64 to the Steelers, giving us a total of roughly 55 points. So that puts us comfortably for the over. That also means they are taking the Steelers to win and the Steelers -5.5. I agree with pretty much all of this. Pittsburgh 5.5. That's an easy pick for me. Steelers to win, also an easy pick. Now that will depend on the odds. If they're favorable, if they're too big of a favorite, it's not worth it because anything can happen. So the Steelers defense is what is key to this game. If the Raiders made Baltimore's defense look bad, I don't think they can do that to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is going to cause Carr to suffer a lot more for his mistakes. And Carr lucked out quite a bit during that game. It seemed like every single pass was overthrown, underthrown. Waller, I think, had 12 targets for only, 5 or 6 receptions maybe? And half of them were not catchable. Like, it was just so bad. He did it every time, except for maybe in overtime and the end of the fourth quarter. It was just every pass. It took him forever to get his game going. And I'm not the biggest fan of Derek Carr, but if he continues to make those mistakes, the Steelers defense will absolutely make him pay for it. We're healthy pretty much everywhere, and I expect turnovers in this game. If Carr continues to play that way. And if he's just going to hyper target Waller like he did in the first, 2-3 quarters of that game before going to his wide receivers, that's a problem because our linebackers are going to be all over Waller. I love Darren Waller. Fantastic player, fantastic human. I have him on quite a few teams, and I wish nothing but the best for him, but I think the Steelers can take care of him if Carr continues to play poorly. All right, next we have an NFC South matchup. We have the New Orleans Saints traveling to Carolina to take on the Panthers. Both of these teams are 1-0. New Orleans are favored by 3.5 points with a lower over-under of 44. So the model has the Panthers at 21.11 points and the Saints at 30.95 with a total of roughly 52 points. So that puts them comfortably at the over. Saints to win, Saints -3.5. So starting with the winner, I think that's fair. I think the Saints will win this game. 3.5, I'm also comfortable taking that bet. The over, I'm a little surprised the over-under is so low, and I don't know why that worries me. I think that's an easy over for me as well. 44 seems really low. What did these guys score last week? Yeah, so if we look at last week, New Orleans put up 38 on Green Bay, which is wild. And then we had Carolina putting up 19. Okay, so maybe that's where the low over-under comes. Are they saying? Wow, that is interesting. So even if they put up half of that, that would be 19 and 19, 38 points would. Yeah, I think that's a low over-under. I would take the over 44. That's a pretty easy one for me as well. So the Saints looked great against Green Bay, but I don't know if that was because Green Bay just looked so absolutely abysmal that it made them look way better than they were. But I don't think anyone would argue that Green Bay is a better team than Carolina. Yes, it was. I think this was a fluke game for Green Bay. So if the Saints can take on Green Bay and win, they can do the same to the Panthers. I like the Panthers. I like Sam Darnold. I like Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey. This is another game I'm probably going to be targeting quite a bit for DFS lineups because I am just so. It's hard. I don't want to question Vegas because there are extremely smart people setting these lines, but that just seems so off to me. But hey, I guess we'll see. So that's going to be an easy over for me. Let's see what happens. All right, 7 more games to cover here. I'm gonna go through them. So we got an AFC matchup with Broncos 1-0 against the 0-1 Jaguars. The Broncos are pretty decent favorites at -6 points with an over of 45.5. The model has a game going to Denver, so they agree with that favorite pick. They are giving Jacksonville 24.08 points, and Denver has 26.19. So a closer game, giving Jacksonville that 6 points. So Jacksonville to cover, that is about 50 points for the total. So that's an over, but Denver to win. I think I agree with all of that. I think all of that is definitely fair. So Jacksonville did not look good. Trevor didn't look good. While the Broncos, they look solid. Now they've lost Jerry Jeudy, which is a concern. They will have to fill that hole. Sutton's probably gonna have to pick it up a bit, and everyone else will fall in line. Now the running backs for Denver, I'm a bit intrigued with. Now I think they're gonna continue splitting the work. Javonte did get more work than Melvin Gordon by I think like 3 carries or something like that. But Melvin Gordon had the big 70-yard rush, which kind of made them look more even than they were. So I think as the season goes on, I see Javonte just continuing to get more work. And, that's kind of what people want. He's the future. And I think he might be the better back. Not to say anything is wrong with Melvin Gordon. It's just running backs do not last in the NFL. The average time in the NFL is short, and it's even shorter for running backs because these teams are figuring out that you can draft a running back that's going to be just as productive, if not more productive, than a veteran player that you would have to sign for a lot of money. So, I mean, obviously some teams are fine shelling out that money. You got Zeke, Christian McCaffrey. They're all making those big bucks, but I feel like those are probably outliers, whereas a lot of these guys can just easily be replaced out of a draft. Now, there's only a handful every draft season, but still, a lot of teams are not really willing to shell out this money just because they can be replaced pretty easily. So the recap, the model is taking the Broncos to win over 45 points and Jacksonville +6. Next matchup here, we have the Minnesota Vikings against the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are 4.5-point home favorites with an over-under of 51 points. The model has the Cardinals winning. Definitely agree with that. They just look fantastic. Defense, offense, they just clicked on both sides of the ball, and I don't expect anything less this week. So the model is giving them 31.83 points to Minnesota's 25.37 for a combination of about 57 points. So that will put them at the over bet, over 51. So the model is taking the Cardinals to win, the over 51, and Cardinals -4.5. And I got to agree with all of that. They just looked unstoppable last week. And if Kyler keeps playing the way he does, if Hopkins continues to be Hopkins, if their defense continues to be surprisingly good, they're a tough team to beat. And the Vikings, they lost in overtime last week to Cincinnati. So Cincinnati is not nearly as good as the Cardinals. So I don't see the Vikings keeping this one close. All right, another NFC South matchup. We have the 0-1 Atlanta Falcons against the 1-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay is the biggest favorite of the week. No, they're the same as the Cleveland Browns, 12.5-point favorites, which is absolutely massive. Over under of 52. That gives the Buccaneers quite a bit of wiggle room when facing off against these Falcons, who just did not look great last week. So the model is easily going to take Tampa Bay over Atlanta. They are giving Tampa Bay 33.52 points to Atlanta's 23.01. That is a total of roughly 57 points. That puts them 5 points over the over-under line. So the model's taking the over, Tampa Bay to win, and they are also taking Atlanta plus 12.5. So similar to how it was with Cleveland and Houston, 12.5 is a lot of points. And I think that's fair to give them that spread. I know the Eagles covered that spread last week. But still, that 12.5 line is just large. So that'll be a good matchup. Hopefully Atlanta can get things going there and not put up just 6 points. Tampa Bay, Tom was not happy with the way they played against Dallas. Dallas just threw on them like crazy, and I think Atlanta would have to do the same, given Atlanta has the receiving weapons to do that too. So if Tampa Bay is giving up receiving yards like that's good news for the Atlanta Falcons. Calvin Ridley should go, and hopefully Pitts can get going too. It was nice to see him involved pretty early, but I'd love to see more from him. So model taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over 52 points and Atlanta plus 12.5. All right, so this next matchup surprises me a little bit. So we have the Dallas Cowboys 0-1 against the 1-0 LA Chargers. The Chargers are 3-point home favorites, and that does surprise me. I thought Dallas looked really good against Tampa. Nothing against the Chargers. The Chargers looked good too, but it feels like the Cowboys should be favored here. So personally, I am probably going to end up taking Cowboys money line, Cowboys plus 3. But this over-under is also pretty large at 55. So this is going to be definitely an exciting game. I'm just a little shocked by the line. So let's go to the model. The model also has the Chargers winning. So they're giving Dallas 26.5 points and the Chargers 30.05 for a total of about 57. So it has the over for this high. This is the highest, tied for the highest over-under of the week at 55 points. And the model is saying take the over. So that is interesting. I can see this one being another shootout. We saw the Cowboys go into a shootout with Tampa last week. Let's do it here again. Dak versus Herbert. They're gonna sling. There's gonna be a lot of passing yards in this game. I'm curious about what the prop bets are there for an over under total passing yards, because give me the over for that, because these guys are gonna chuck the ball. So, like I said, I think I'll probably end up taking Cowboys money line, Cowboys to cover the spread, but the model is going to disagree with me. The model is saying take the Chargers money line and the Chargers -3, and they also say take the over 55 points. All right, next game up, we have the Tennessee Titans 0-1 against the 1-0 Seattle Seahawks. Seattle is 5.5-point home favorites with another pretty high over-under of 54 points, so just one less than the highest of the week. So model is saying Seattle 32.59 points to Tennessee's 29.07, giving the win to the Seattle Seahawks. And the model is predicting the highest total points scored for the week at 62 total points. So that is an easy over 54 for the model. However, they expect it to be a close game. So model is predicting a shootout. So they are taking Tennessee to cover with plus 5.5. So this is an interesting one. Two definitely high-powered offense. You have Seattle with Russ, DK, Tyler Lockett. That is a scary trio. And then on the other side of the ball, you have another scary trio with Ryan Tannehill, A.J. Brown, and Julio Jones. Now, Tennessee did not really bring it together last week, but I think that was more from Arizona's defense just being very, very good. I don't think Seattle's defense is as good as Arizona's, so this one should be closer. So Tennessee only put up 13 points last week, and Seattle put up 28 against a defense who I think is pretty good with the Colts. So this is definitely going to be a high offensive power game, and this is one of the ones that I'm most excited for this week. This is going to be a battle of will. Who scores last is who's going to win this game. So I think I agree with most of this. I have a tough time taking Seattle winning. I might not even touch the money line for this one. I think it is going to be a very close game. I'm comfortable taking Tennessee 5.5. The over 54, I think that's fair as well. That one's close though. I don't know if they'll score 62 total points, but they might get 56 or something like that. They might barely beat it. But hey, the model is going to make its picks. We are not adjusting any of these. We're going to let it run, let it do its thing. But please remember, if you're going to tail the model's picks, do not take it verbatim. Do not just say, oh, the model says this, I better take that bet. That is not the purpose of this model. It would be great if it worked that way, but maybe we get it there someday. I don't think so, just because of how this is a difficult problem to solve. So please do not take it verbatim. Don't just pick everything it picks. This is meant for discussion. This is meant to say, hey, here's what a statistical model is telling us to take. And then what we want to do from this show, and when we post our picks and everything on Reddit, we want to get some discussion around it. We want to get feedback from the community, a human touch on this, because humans, like I said, when Ed and I talked about this model, it doesn't know about context for these games. So if it doesn't know about injuries, so that's a problem. And that's where we need to come in and put some discussion around it and say, oh, well, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's not going to be playing for a bit. This is definitely going to affect Washington. The model doesn't know that and is still going to base it purely on prior statistics for the Washington football game and whoever the defense is that they're playing that week. It has no idea that Fitzpatrick is out, and that will likely cause them to not score as many points. So again, take it with a grain of salt. It's meant to be an assistant, not a know-it-all. So just to recap, model is taking the Seattle Seahawks money line, Tennessee plus 5.5, and over 54 points. Just two more games. These are the primetime games. So for Sunday Night Football, this is another one I'm very excited for. We have the 1-0 Chiefs against the 0-1 Ravens after coming off that horrible loss against the Raiders. So the Chiefs are currently 3.5-point favorites, and this is tied for the highest over-under of the week at 55 points. It surprises me that Kansas City isn't favored by more, but that might be because of their slow start against Cleveland last week. So it's a little interesting there. I think it makes it a little easier for me to take Kansas City to cover. But let's go to the model and see what it thinks. So the model, wow, okay. Oh, wow, okay. I did not realize that. That is wild. Okay, so the model has Baltimore winning 29.42 to 24.82. That gives a total of 54 points. So that is 1 point below the over-under line. So the model is going to bet the under. So the model is going to take the Baltimore Ravens money line and Baltimore plus, it was plus 4 when we made the bet, but right now it's plus 3.5. So that's shocking to me. Like I said, I'm pretty comfortable taking Kansas City minus 3.5. But I'm not going to question it. The model got the Houston Texans winning and New Orleans Saints winning last week. So I know I just said don't follow it for verbatim, but hey, maybe it has a mind of its own and it knows something we don't. So I personally probably won't take the money line for the Ravens. Like I said, I'm comfortable with KC minus 4, minus 3.5. The under 55, I know that's a pretty high over-under, but Kansas City put up 33 last week and Baltimore put up 27. So that's 60 points. So that over-under is not outrageous to take the over there. Model's going to take the under. I would probably lean towards the over. And again, when I post these picks, let's have some discussion. Let's talk about it. And the final matchup of the week, we have a divisional matchup against two winless teams, the Detroit Lions, which, I mean, everyone probably expected that, against the winless Green Bay Packers. I don't think a lot of people expected that. So Green Bay is a massive home favorite against the Lions, 10.5 points with a 48-point over-under. That, again, is a lot of points, and we already had these big spreads go towards the underdog, at least for the model. But for this one, the model is actually going to take Green Bay minus 10.5. So the model is giving Detroit only 21.85 points, which is the second lowest. Yeah, second lowest next to the New York Giants. And that one's probably more towards because they're playing a good defense. So Detroit Lions are given 21.85 points. Green Bay is giving a massive 39.58. So again, the model has zero context. It has no idea that they even lost last week. So, putting some human thought into this, and maybe that's wrong. Maybe it's wrong to put some human thought into this, but I would expect the Packers to be pretty upset that they lost that game that bad. I think I've said this a lot, but they have to turn back around. Aaron Rodgers needs to get things going, and I think they will against an easy matchup against the Lions. I'm probably not comfortable taking the 10.5 point spread either direction, so that's one I probably won't touch. And the money line is probably terrible odds, so I wouldn't touch that one either. But this is another huge total points. This is the second highest total points that the model's given. So that is comfortably sitting them at over 48 points with a prediction of 61 total. So will they get there? I mean, the Lions put up some numbers against San Francisco, and I think San Francisco has a better defense than Green Bay. Detroit put up 33 against them. So I think that's an easy over, but that's probably the only bet I personally will be touching from this game is the over 48 points. So the model is taking Green Bay to win, Green Bay minus 10.5, and over 48 points. So that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for listening. Thanks for following along with the machine learning model. It's really an interesting experiment. It's pretty fun. I'm going to post these picks on Reddit. They'll also be on our Action Network, which you can find the links in the descriptions. Be sure to follow us. We're on Twitter at SWTN_podcast. We're also on Instagram at Sleeping with the Numbers, YouTube at Sleeping with the Numbers. You got to search for us. I say that every time, but just letting you know. We also have a website, sleepingwiththenumbers.com. There you can find all of our picks. We have our fantasy rankings there for quarterback, wide receiver, running back. We also will be posting our DFS lineups there. We'll tweet out our DFS lineups too. We give 3 free lineups a week, and I'm going to be building a lineup every week for a video that y'all can watch, and maybe eventually, if people follow along, we can start doing it live and start building some lineups together. That would be pretty fun. So again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching if you're on YouTube, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.